Hello, everyone. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Welcome back. Or if this is your first video, welcome. You picked a good one to pop in on because I have got Ben Wallace here with us today.
Hello.
He is going to be sharing with us a bit of his experience of living with and recovering from chronic fatigue syndrome. So I'm very grateful for you so graciously spending some time with us today.
Yeah, no,
So
it's completely fine. I'm glad to have the opportunity to take part in something like this.
yeah, well, it's a really great opportunity, I think, for people to get to hear more of people's stories out there, and not everyone's going to start their own YouTube channel. So I figure the more people I can get on my channel, the better, and we can get some more stories out there. This interview today is the first of a few in a series that I'm kicking off that is going to include interviews with all sorts of people. I've got a few coming up with people who are fully recovered from chronic fatigue syndrome or ME, so that's really exciting. So if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do and ring that little gray bell below the screen so that you know when the new videos come out because you are not going to want to miss these. So you have, although you've been living in Austria for the last year, is that correct?
I've been living in Austria. I did live in Austria for a year. Then I came back to the UK, and then I went back again for 3 months. So I've had a bit of a back and forth.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. And now you are in Preston, is that
I'm in
correct?
Preston. Yeah, yeah, back at home.
Yeah, and it's so nice to be talking with you again. We just did this not too long ago when I was a guest on your podcast,
It's true.
Ben's Learning Lounge.
You were, yeah, you were a great
Yeah,
guest. That episode should be out now as well at the same time.
wonderful. I'm so excited. Okay, so just before we dive into this, it's important for all of you watching to know that Ben and myself are just sharing our own personal experiences of living with and recovering from chronic fatigue syndrome. Neither one of us are medical healthcare professionals, so of course, nothing that we share should be considered professional advice. Well, I'm really excited to have you on today because I know that you, of course, have your own unique experience of living with and recovering from this illness, and I know that you also have some remarkable insights on things like managing expectations when
Yeah,
you're living with this illness and learning how to slow down but still remain productive, which can sound like simple things, I think, but in my experience, it's pretty much the glue that holds it all together. It really can be a tricky thing to master. So I'm excited to hear about all of that. But how about we start with you just giving us a brief overview of your story, I guess? How you got sick, if there was something that triggered it that you're aware of, how long you've been facing this, the different severity levels you've had to deal with, and so forth.
yeah, sure, no worries. So taking you magically right back to the beginning. So it was back in 2016. So it's sort of late 2016. I not long began my time at university, and at first it was going quite well. I enjoyed it. I say that my whole university experience was great. But for me, a lot of people tend to have, well, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people definitely have some kind of build up to it. But for me, it was almost, it hit me straight on. It was one day I woke up and it hit me. And that day was, I remember it because I was actually going on a trip with my friends then. We were going up to the Lake District, if people know that in the UK. It's a really pretty place. And I just woke up that day and I remember thinking, God, I just feel like unnaturally tired today. And it was like, because here's the thing, when for me at least, I remember that this isn't a normal kind of tiredness that I was dealing with, and I realize that now too. I have to remember that it felt so much more exhausting than normal tiredness, and it wasn't like I did anything the night before or that morning. I wasn't up particularly early. It just hit me hard, and obviously it's quite worrying when that happens. And I kind of thought, you know a lot of these symptoms can be similar to the flu. So I just kind of maybe put it off a little bit and thought it must just be some kind of temporary, thing. And I battled on with it because that's kind of my personality, is just if I have
Mhm.
something, just get on with it. So I spent the next few months at university still getting my hands in lots of different things, but yet I had this incredible fatigue. At this point, I already done a lot of research, so I kind of had this idea that it could be this chronic fatigue syndrome thing, um, or I thought it was perhaps some kind of like extreme depression. I wasn't too sure. I wasn't too well versed in what it could be. I remember there's some memories of me in the morning knowing I had to go to like a lecture or something like that, and what I would do is instead I would just either sit in my room or I would go to there was a piano in the little common room area, and I would sit by there and just my eyes would be wanting to shut, and I was just thinking like, what's happening to me? You know, it's crazy. It really felt like I've just been cursed with something. Um, but it took, you know, after seeing a few doctors and a few blood tests here and there later, it took about maybe 3 years until I got an official diagnosis that it was chronic fatigue syndrome, and that
Oh,
took
wow.
a lot of back and forth. So it was difficult, and it's been quite a roller coaster. You know, I would say severity wise, so you know, some months of my life have been very much I can't go out. I don't want to do anything. If I do go out, especially to see friends, I have to kind of prepare up to 3 days before, you know, myself that I'm going to be doing that. Sleeping way too much, you know, during that time, and napping just wasn't helping, and I couldn't focus on my studies in the slightest. So that's kind of how it started, and the severity. And since then, it's got a lot better. I still have my peaks and my troughs. I wouldn't say I'm completely recovered because I still have my bad days that still come and go. But it's a lot better now, you know, than it was when I originally got it. So that's something.
Wow, that sounds like a rough few years. I can't even imagine
Yeah, it's
trying to get
been.
through that with university.
Oh yeah, having university studies at the same time was just the icing on the cake of like, oh God, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
So it was definitely a managing, very difficult to manage. But I found if I once I learned how to break everything down and manage my life effectively in small pieces, and keep a good level of motivation through different kind of tactics and things, that's what kind of built me up to where I am now, and you know, to feeling
Okay.
like I'm a lot more capable.
So would you say you're at a level of sort of functional recovery? You can't perhaps go out and run marathons whenever you want, but you can get through your life, do the day-to-day things.
Yeah, so I'm at the point now I've noticed where I I couldn't do a full-time job at the moment, but I can work part-time.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
can work part-time, I can get a bit of exercise in, I do my yoga, I can work on my own projects. I don't have to uh nap every day now like I used to.
Okay.
But I'm kind of reserving the ability to work full-time because I want to tackle it when I know that I am, you know, pretty much ready to be there. Because I've had times in the
Mhm.
past, I'm sure you have, and other people have too when they relapse, and I
Mhm.
relapsed quite hard last year after I started working full time. So I think it's important to you know really keep teaching myself and telling myself to not keep pushing myself too hard and know where my limits are. And then you know keep making that slow incremental progress until I know that I can actually work full time and work full time to a level that I know that wouldn't be detrimental to me.
I think that is so smart. Even myself, I feel most of the time like I'm at a state of being fully recovered and I'll be going back to work soon, but you still never really know. And the more I read and the more I research trying to find answers to this, the more fuzzy it gets,
Mhm.
whether this is something that is with you for life, it's always latent in your body, or, will you continually have relapses if you aren't taking care of yourself, or can you get past it? So I think it is a common theme with a lot of us that we start to feel better, we jump into things, we think, oh,
Yes.
it'll be fine, I can do it. And then we bring ourselves back into this world of hell that we have to dig ourselves out of again.
100%. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's just trying not to get too carried away when you start having too many good days in a row.
Isn't that almost a superpower, though? This pacing and this ability to hold back?
It is because on the pacing really for me is the hardest, not on the bad days, but on those good days, you know, because on the
Hmm.
bad days you do have to pace obviously because there's only so much you can do. But the good days you don't want to pace. You want to make the
Hmm.
most of it. You know, you want to go outside. You want to, you know, for me it's going in the gym. I love going in the gym. So if I can and I felt better, I
Hmm.
would start going in the gym again. And you know, if you start even after like a week, you might be thinking, well, this isn't really hitting me at the moment. You know, just
Hmm.
be careful with that enthusiasm because that can be what puts another nail in the coffin if you're not careful, you know.
It's such a tough one, I think, too, because most of us have learned throughout our lives to listen to our bodies. So when our bodies start to push back, then we pull back. But with this illness, I don't know about for you, but at least with my experience, if I wait until my body's pushing back, I've already gone way too far. I have to
Yes.
quit while I'm ahead. I have to quit while I'm still feeling good,
Yeah. Yeah,
which
I
is such a
understand.
big ask, especially when you don't feel good all that often to have to quit while you're feeling good and
No,
just
I feel like it's such a common theme too, and I mention it in my podcast as well, actually. But just it just seems like the people who have such the very active people, they do a lot of things. They're the ones that seem to get hit quite often, or at least perhaps proportionally more than the general majority. I have a lot of I made a lot of friends of people who have this illness, and a lot of them are actually before this were very active people, which I just think is quite an interesting thing because for us, as people who are like that, and I know you were like that as well, you're a very active person, it's the biggest challenge to then learn to stop doing that. You have to learn to even detach your personality from that because I don't know
Yes.
about you, but a lot of my personality was attached to the fact that I did so much.
Mhm.
So learning how to build my self up in a different way. I remember I went to therapy and things like that, which was really helpful to learn what I've got innate within me rather than measuring myself on the value of doing a lot, which I was so used to.
Which is a really important lesson. It's unfortunate that we have to go through something like this to learn it, but I suspect we all identify with that a bit. Our identity, our value, our worth is attached to our career, how many marathons we run, how good a shape we're in, how social we are. And when you take all of that back, it can be quite jarring. Kind of like
Mhm.
what's left, you know.
Course. I think that's why it's so much of a common thing that people start when they have this. Meditation is such a common thing. Usually, we're very, like you say, we're very extrinsically. Um, we value ourselves very extrinsically by what's out
Hmm.
there rather than what's inside us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm sure people are going to want to know what things you have found have worked for you. And a big one that always comes up, I feel like might be a good place to start because everyone always wants to know about is diet. Has
Yes.
diet at all impacted your process with this illness? And
Well,
if so, what does that look like?
in short, yes, it has.
Okay.
In long, uh, I mean, if if someone has this and they haven't tried diet yet, my personal first recommendation, and of course I'm not a complete expert in the field. I've just done bits of research, based on my passion, and I'm sure a lot of other people are like that too. But I recommend at least experimenting with your diet or noticing those effects. I mean, people say keep a food journal. I was too lazy to do that, but I do recommend people do that. Have a look at what you're eating,
Mhm,
or at least after you eat something, see if you feel any different. And
mhm,
I noticed that for me personally, when I was having gluten, I was having those effects. And I know people I saw online a lot, maybe gluten has this and maybe gluten does that. I wasn't too sure really because I enjoyed bacon sandwiches a lot, especially at work. It helped get me through. And I didn't really want to believe it. But it was affecting my stomach a lot, because people with this also have, obviously different kind of problems too. I get sore throats. I get a lot of sort of gastrointestinal issues, those type of things, headaches. So it was affecting my gut a little bit, and then I noticed that the gut would then affect how tired I was too. If I had a problem with my gut, I felt tired. So cutting
okay.
that out was a massive thing for me. It doesn't work for everyone. I tried keto as well, a ketogenic diet when you completely
Mhm,
remove your sort of carbs or practically remove them all. That didn't work for me, but I know people it did work for.
mhm,
And I think you yourself, you did a vegan diet, right, which worked for you.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, also after trying many different things, I tried something resembling close to a keto, and I did see some progress, but it was still incredibly slow. Yeah, I tried a lot of different things, and for
Yes.
me, yeah, the whole food plant-based route has done wonders. But I also know, like you said, many people who have just thrived on a keto diet. So it
Yes.
really seems
Yeah.
important, exactly like you said, to experiment, to keep a
Experiment.
journal if you're not too lazy.
Yes. Yeah. Of
But at
course.
the very least, yeah, take note of what's happening. So
Yeah,
it
I
sounds like
agree.
diet has been a part of this process, but it certainly hasn't been the whole puzzle for you. It hasn't been the whole
No.
solution.
No. No. Diet was definitely a big stepping stone, and just especially, I want to say, reducing my sugars
Okay.
helped a lot too. But
Yeah, for
it
me
it
as
was yeah,
well.
it was only a part of it, and like many other people, I've been doing a lot of research into what's sort of effective. And I'm very research based. I don't like trying something unless there isn't good studies behind it,
Mm.
because
Okay.
otherwise, you don't want to waste your money on stuff that isn't going to work. And especially when you feel you're desperate, it's very easy for you to jump onto things just because they seem at the time a good opportunity, and before you
Mhm.
know it, you've sunk a few hundred into something which maybe did nothing for you, or if anything, could even have a negative effect. Um, so
That's me. You're describing me. I did
Well, there
all
you
of
go.
that. Yeah.
It's so easy when you're desperate.
Yeah.
You wanna get your hands in these things, especially on when you have terrible days. You just think, well, this thing
Yes.
looks good. I'll just buy that. It's only cost me,
Yeah.
100 quid. I'll just give that a go. But it's not always the case. So for me, anyway, my point is that I look at research stuff and things that have worked for me in the long term. I think because it's difficult to measure long term. But I take D-ribose, which is the sugar. I take
Mhm.
that every day. I take 8 grams of that a day, and I notice an instant energy boost when I have that. I have vitamin B12 drops. That
Okay.
I noticed as soon as having it, it affected me positively. I'd say be
Wow.
careful with that though for people because if you have that too late, you will feel quite energetic when you go to bed. I've noticed I've had that too,
With the
or at least
B12?
rest. Yeah, B12.
Okay.
Yeah. Acetyl L-carnitine is something else I found work, which is very good for brain function. As
Okay.
with that too, I've been taking omega 3s every day.
Mhm.
So put I don't try and rely on too many supplements. I've tried to find the supplements that I know, looking at research, seem to be
Mhm.
effective and seem to be doing more positive for people than negative, and also that won't
Mhm.
cost me a fortune. And
Mhm.
those things I can say if in the supplement world have been beneficial to me.
Oh, that's really good to know because yeah, it's a bit confusing, to put it mildly, the whole supplement world. There are just so many options, and it can get really
Yes.
confusing. And I know
It,
I definitely went crazy with the supplements at my doctor's recommendation. It was his treatment protocol. But yeah, I know I spent thousands of dollars that I didn't need to spend because most of it wasn't helping me at all. I don't know what you find, but I think when something is long term, sometimes you're just buying hope, you know?
yes, you are.
Like, this may not work, but it worked for Joe over in Utah, so I'm gonna try it. And I have this bottle on the counter every day, and I see it, and I feel like it,
Oh
it,
yeah.
it gives me some hope.
That
So,
was that was exactly how it feels. Like you do buy things sometimes because you think it's a bit of a bottle of hope, and let's
yeah,
be honest. I think probably some of these things are attributed to like a placebo effect to some
yeah,
extent when you take them, which I suppose has its own benefits. I suppose if it's a placebo
it
effect,
does.
and you're feeling
It
good, but as long as
does.
it's not too expensive of a placebo effect.
Yes, exactly. And if you spend a lot of money and then you don't even get the placebo effect,
Yes,
then
yeah,
you've really wasted your
that's
money.
problematic, yeah. If we're talking about other things too, which have helped,
Yeah.
I'd say I've been going to getting massages.
Okay.
Um, I think other people get this too, but I get incredibly tense muscles, or at least it used to be really bad. Yeah,
Mhm. Absolutely. Oh my goodness, yes.
yeah.
Incredible.
So
Massages have helped me a ton as well. They are,
really good.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's good to hear because I get very tight. I didn't know this until I started trying to stretch them, but very, very tight hamstrings and very, very tight calves.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'll give it a go. I'll try getting these massaged, and yeah, I feel like it's all very linked, in the body and things which I didn't really learn before because, my dad and my brother, they're very much into bodybuilding. I'm the runt of the litter there, but I'm still interested in it. And I've learned a lot from them about, the different parts of your body and how they segment, but never really about how it all works together. And I think that, learning about how massages can help the whole body has been a big benefit for me. And working out little things in my legs felt like it's actually gave me energy to a certain level too. So yeah, it's helped with my energy levels. It's helped with just feeling more relaxed too. And it's stopped I get like a big, or I used to get a big lactic acid buildup in my legs, which
Okay.
contributes to that tiredness as well. So
Yeah, I found the same. I get incredibly tight and sore muscles. Um, developed restless leg syndrome while I had chronic fatigue
yeah, that's
syndrome,
common. Yeah, I never had that, but I've heard that too.
which drives me nuts. One, because it's horrible to have to deal with, and two, it's another ridiculous sounding condition that just sounds
Yeah.
so like lacks credibility,
Yeah, we're not
beyond
getting
words. But
the good names here, are we? Chronic
no,
fatigue
we're
syndrome,
really not.
restless
No
leg
one's
syndrome.
doesn't really do us justice, but it helps a lot for me with that. And then I also came to appreciate, how important it is to keep things moving in our body with our lymphatic system. And when you're sick and exhausted, it's hard to move around a lot. So laying down for a massage is one way to keep things moving without
Yeah.
having to actually do a workout. Unfortunately, I've talked to quite a few people who struggle with massages, and it's not an option for them, whether it's due to, skin sensitivity or body pain. So
Mhm.
it's certainly not going to be for everyone, but for quite a few people, it sounds like
Yeah,
it's
that's the thing. It's
helpful.
it's difficult area, isn't it?
All right. So, in terms of your things that have worked for you, your recovery, are there any other main players that you'd like to share?
Well, it's very similar to one that you've mentioned quite a bit on your channel, but that
Okay.
the aspect of getting daily sunlight is important. I don't think it's worth mocking the very basic things that our body needs to. Obviously, simple things: drink plenty of water, getting a bit of sunlight. Those things. I've noticed that I like to track on my phone some of the times that I feel really good, even if it's just for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or sometimes it's an hour, or a whole day. But I like to write them on my phone. I've got into a really good habit of doing that because you look back on the bad days, it helps you feel motivated. And there's a big link for me personally that I always feel the best when I'm outside in the sun. So maybe I'm taking my dog for a walk or something like that, and often it's at those moments when I feel the most energized. So it's that's a thing worth considering. That even beforehand, if I wasn't feeling too up for it, and I go out, even if it's just for 5 minutes or something, even if you can't do it for
Hmm.
very long, sometimes at least just getting a little bit of sun out there, or just using your legs a little bit, can definitely help keep the energy moving around your body.
Yeah, I've definitely found the same. And I've always said, try and get, for me, even 15, 20 minutes a day. But recently I've been playing around with this because I'm just a chronically bad sleeper. And I've committed to getting 2 hours of sunlight every single day. And it has the same effect for me with sleep as taking sedatives. Like, I sleep like a
Mm.
baby. It's
Wow, really?
incredible. So I don't know, that might be too much for some other people. We all have our own unique stuff going on. But for me,
It might be too much for
more the
people in the
better.
UK though, who might not actually get that opportunity.
Yes, in California, it's a little bit sunnier than some other places in the world, so I am lucky that way. And you mentioned exercise. You said you're doing yoga, and that's been a part of it. Can you share a little bit more about how that's played into your recovery? If there's any other things you do for exercise?
Yeah, massively. So yoga is incredible because I haven't started doing it until about 3 months ago. I started doing it because I have a friend who does it, and they do it for unrelated reasons. But there's a slight level of convincing going on there. Like, Ben, give it a go. It's be good for you. And I thought, "Oh, all right, then I'll try it." And it's been incredibly good for me. And it's difficult to explain why exactly, but the process of doing yoga, especially I used to do it every morning and every evening. I've been a little bit lazier than that recently. I've been doing it once a day. It does feel like there's a link between stretching out my muscles, and again with the massages too,
Mhm.
and feeling a sort of energy release around my body. I feel like it all gets, this isn't scientific, but it feels like it all gets stored up in there somehow in like a little ball. So getting that
I
released, I
agree.
feel that. Yeah.
I agree. I
Yeah.
do not have the words to explain it in any credible sounding way either, but I'd be curious to hear, any of you watching, if this resonates with you and you have a similar experience, leave it in the comments. I think that's part of the power of us sharing these types of stories is we get to collect and see and how
Definitely.
much of what we have is common and what we're doing to remedy these things and get past them.
Definitely. And I think if you're considering doing a bit of yoga, there's an app that I use. Obviously, nothing sponsored here, but I use an app called Down Dog, because you
Okay.
get like, I think it's 30 days you get free on it, which is really good. So it gives you a really good time to try it out if you want to buy it or not. That's been really helpful for me using that app because you can personalize a lot. Because there's different kinds of yoga. So there's a mode on there called restorative, which is much more about gentle movements, more about sitting down, lying down, when other parts of yoga can be a bit more strenuous. So I kind
Mm,
of like that too, that there's that option there. So if you're thinking about taking up yoga and you've got quite bad symptoms, then maybe consider doing a more gentle kind. Don't
mm.
overstrain yourself.
What about people ask me a lot about cardio or strength training? Have either of these things, have you played around with them? Have you found them to be helpful or hurtful?
So for me personally, they've actually been a bit hurtful, at least
Okay.
because of the level that I think I take them. Now, I'm struggle when it comes to exercise and not going for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not
I
really,
do.
want to dedicate myself to it. And like I said, my family are very much, my dad and my brother very much into the bodybuilding scene, and I used to do a little bit of that training as well. Um, so when you want to do a set of something, especially in strength, you want to give all you can to it. You want to see a personal record break. Um, but
Yeah.
in reality, that did me more damage, and I noticed that now looking back. So really what I could be doing is doing light strength work, but I don't feel like I've got the the discipline to take it as lightly as that without going full force. So I've replaced that with yoga,
Yeah.
and similar with cardio. I find it enough cardio per day, walking one of my dogs, and that's for about 15 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day, which I
Okay.
think has been enough for me. And you can feel it in your
Mhm.
body too. I know it's enough, and then I can feel it in my head. I'm ready to go back and rest. So,
Mhm.
for me personally, I would say, neither have been too helpful, because I think I would give too much to it. But managing it and pushing it back a little bit has done me a few favors, and replacing it with something a bit more wholesome, like yoga.
That yeah, that seems like it's key. We all have to find what works with us and what we will be able to control our output with. A
Uh,
lot of what you say resonates, and I struggle with that as well. I really like the gym. I think that's why I failed with exercise for so many years because I didn't have the ability to think as small as I needed to think when it came to weightlifting and to completely put my ego aside.
Yeah, there's a
You
big
know,
pride with it, isn't there? Especially with
Oh,
weight.
there really is. Competition with myself, competition with other people.
Yeah,
Who these people are, I don't know, but I'm imagining them in my head. And so, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I'm glad the yoga's worked so well for you. What about things like how important have things like detoxing your life been? Whether it's organic food or filtered water or natural products. Has this been something that you've been, incorporating into your recovery? And if so, has it been effective?
All right, so I've always been into detox teas. Let me tell you, I
Okay.
was born and bred on tea. So that throughout the process, I was taking it beforehand, but throughout the process, I got to give tea its credit for making me feel very calm.
Okay.
And tea is good because it can help such a variety of things. For example, if you have digestive issues, something like peppermint tea is great. If you want to
Okay.
help sleep, sometimes chamomile or a lavender tea can help you. If you want to
Okay.
help wake up, green tea is often better than coffee because coffee contains a lot of caffeine, and you don't have too much stimulation. I think if you have something like
Hmm.
fatigue syndrome. So, um, for me, tea and ginger tea that's been really good for my sore throats, as well as sage tea. So for me, I've covered a lot of bases in my life with tea. So tea is the main thing I have to say
Wow.
for you.
This video is sponsored by
It should be, shouldn't it? I
tea.
tell you, if one day I need to get a tea company on board with
Yeah.
because I tell you, I drink all sorts. Food, I've detoxed a lot.
Okay.
So getting rid of foods that are highly processed. I don't eat fast food anymore. Full stop.
Mhm.
Um, but I do help myself to a bit of chocolate every now and then. But I keep it to high percentage. I have very high percentage chocolate. So if I have it, I don't know if this grosses some people out, but I like having 99%, which is
Oh, wow.
I think it's delicious. I've slowly worked my way up the realm. I never used to be like that. I used to like white chocolate, but here we are. So stuff like that, which has there's something in it which is a detoxing. It's a detoxing sauce. It's the same thing you get in green
Okay.
tea. Um,
Okay.
so do a bit of research on that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I have a bit of
Antioxidants and whatnot.
antioxidants. Yeah.
Yeah.
So dark chocolate has been
Okay.
very nice. Put it in my porridge in the morning. Ah, that's another point. Talking about detoxing, things in the morning when you wake up. Just
Yeah.
think about things that might work for you a little bit better because some of them can be filled with obviously things like jam can be filled with a lot of sugar. Just try experimenting with different things and you want to make sure that you have a good insulin levels at the start of the day. That drives a lot of your energy. So for me in the morning, I have oat porridge with blueberries. I have chia seeds with it. Seeds are very full of proteins and antioxidants,
Mhm.
and pumpkin seeds. And I also have what else do I have with it? Sometimes I add a little bit of coconut yogurt if I want. But yeah, so for me, that's been really helpful, and it makes me look forward to the start of the day. If you make the beginning of the day something you look forward to, you're gonna be a bit more likely to want to get out of bed.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Well, I know, since starting to share my story, I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people, which has been just amazing. And one thing I notice is that a lot of people understandably seem to get really overwhelmed with this whole recovery process because there's so much information, so many different things to try. Just from your own personal experience, I know you can't say what is right for anybody else, but if someone were only able to make one change this week, is there one thing that you would say would be a
Yeah,
good place to start?
yeah, good question. Let me think. I think I do have an answer, but I want to make sure I can say it right to that person. Um, First of all, the main change is within the question itself because people feel overwhelmed with the
Mhm.
amount of things there are, and that's easy to do. But I think in a lot of cases, feeling overwhelmed is perhaps part of the problem with chronic fatigue is that when you feel overwhelmed, you feel more stressed and you feel more tired, and you have to simplify it in your head. So what I would do is what they can start doing is kind of simplify their life down a little bit. Look at what they're doing already. Maybe think about some areas they might like to do. Maybe write it down if it helps them. Some
Mhm,
supplements they might want to try, or maybe if they want to try going out in the sun, make a little list for yourself. So
mm.
the most important thing to do is to not overwhelm yourself with too much because that's going to delay your recovery process. But don't make that list too expansive. Just maybe prioritize a couple of things for now and then move on to the
Right.
next thing.
Oh, I absolutely love that answer. I think that is so important. One that I think basically what I'm hearing is start with your mental health because if you're stressed out and full of anxiety, at least in my experience, you're not getting anywhere. Stress can be more toxic for me than, virtually anything else out there. So if you're
Yes.
stuck in this cycle, you're really doing yourself a lot of harm. And then I also love that it kind of speaks to the fact that there isn't any one thing that anyone should start with. They're going to have to determine that for themselves. But to
Yes.
start small and keep it
Yes.
manageable. That's really good advice. Really good. Thank you for that. Well, I think a good place for us to kind of bring this to an end here is just I'd love for you to share how, if and how this whole experience has changed you. Has any good come from it? Has it changed the way you live your life, how you approach life?
Well, yeah, it has. So obviously, I'm still in the recovery process, but I'm making, I think, decent strides. And the main thing which I found to okay, so at the start when I had chronic fatigue, I kind of saw it as a big, big, scary monster. This
Hmm.
dark looming thing. I didn't really understand it. Now what I view it as, and it's more of a reframing thing, that helped me, is now I see it personally as a bit of a Herculean challenge. I always liked Hercules as a kid. I think Hercules is great in motivating me. So I kind of see it like the biggest challenge you could put on someone like me who's very active is to force them to learn how to slow down. I see it as almost like, well, yeah, actually, I will look after myself. I do want to.
Yep.
I have to take the competitive side to me and use it to my own advantage. If I have bad days,
Hmm.
that's all right. I can pick myself up the next day and just give it a go and see what happens. So I see it as a big Herculean challenge. But at the end of the day, it's just about that looking after myself. And I find the best way to do that for me is to look at it competitively and to think I have to look after myself because that's the only way I'm going to get better. And this is the biggest challenge someone could put on me is to slow down and look after myself rather than putting it all outwards. So that's what
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of us can relate to that. No matter how challenging and how difficult and impossible this all can feel at times, most of us seem to come out the other side of it a better version of ourselves than we were before we went in. And it's,
Hmm.
like you said, using those things about yourself in new ways or, things that maybe that you don't think of as strengths, like, oh, my competitiveness is holding me back. I got to find ways to use this to my advantage. So, yeah, I think that's really important and
Yeah,
very
yeah. Use
impressive.
the tools you got. You've got to.
Yeah.
Everyone's special. Everyone's got their own things, and find just what works for you. Use your own innate personality and skills to help get you through it. Because even if you don't
Yeah.
think so at the start, people are a lot tougher than they think they are, and they find that out through having something like this.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Oh, no
And thank
problem.
you for being here today. This has been incredibly informative and inspiring and entertaining. Channel your inner Hercules.
Yes, yeah. That's
That is
that's my
your way
message.
out of this.
Yeah, it's very. I understand. It's very high and mighty, but sometimes I think it's important to frame things in that way.
So, if people want to know more, if they want to reach you, how can they find you? Where can they find you? Tell us about your podcast.
Well, if they want to find me, the first thing to do is go to Preston. That's probably the best spot. The second best
Okay,
thing,
maybe
and
not find you in your home.
maybe not. Yeah, maybe reconsider that option. But the second best option to find me is probably through my podcast. It's called Ben's Learning Lounge. Hopefully, you'll see my interview with Raelan on there as well. And I'm sort of working on bigger and bigger projects with people. So that's coming up the next episode at least. And yeah, that's kind of the most exciting thing I've got going on. And if people want to talk to me through there, I've got an email as well, which I'll give to you that you can give out to people if they want to contact me directly. I have a Facebook group for people between the ages of 16 and 25, especially if they at university. If they want a friend group of people to talk to while they're going through this, because I feel that sometimes younger people, when they're going through university, it's a difficult thing to manage. And I feel like if you have a sort of a network of people who are backing you up, it's really helpful. So I run that on Facebook, so they can email me about that. So hopefully that'll be helpful for people.
Great. And I will flash all of this up on the screen for the video here, and it will all be in the video description below. So if you're interested in checking out any of those things, all those details are there. And I especially love that Facebook group because I have quite a few people who contact me that are in that age category. And although I do my best to be a support, I'm in a slightly older age demographic. So I know I just can't relate to everything that they're going through because they're facing, unique challenges that come from facing this at that age group. So this is the first I've heard of a group like this. So I think that's a really important thing. And your podcast as well, I just cannot rave enough about it. I just love it. It's so informative and entertaining and inspiring and all of the things that you want a podcast to be. So I really encourage people to check it out. So again, those details are below. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, it's great to
And
be here. Yeah, it gives me something to do during quarantine.
oh, I can't wait until we get to stop saying that.
Ah, yeah, the freedom that will come. I cannot wait.
If you think this video had value, please share it on social media. You can share the link directly on Facebook or take a screenshot, and you can share it on Instagram, tag myself and tag Ben, and let us know what you think.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking, subscribing. Please leave your comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If any of this resonates, anything that you have to contribute or share, any of your own tips, it's just all really valuable. And I always love hearing from you. So thank you, Ben. Thank you to everyone who's watching. And that's all for today. Take care, everyone.